The Lives of the Saints by Father Alban Butler, March 27, St. John Damascene. St. John Damascene, the first of the long line of Christian Aristotelians, was also one of the two greatest poets of the Eastern Church. Together with St. Roman the Melodic, St. John spent his whole life under the rule of a Mohammedan caliph, and this fact shows the strange case of a Christian church father protected from the vengeances of an emperor whose heresies he could attack with impunity, since he lived under Mohammedan rule. He and Theodore the Studate were the main and strongest defenders of the cult of the sacred images in the bitter time of the iconoclastic controversy. As a theological and philosophical writer, he never attempted to be original, for his work was reduced rather to compiling and putting in order what his predecessors had written. Still, in theological matters he is regarded as the last court of appeal among the Greeks, and his treatise of the Orthodox faith is still to the Eastern schools what the Summa of St. Thomas Aquinas became to the West. The Muslim governors of Damascus, where St. John was born, were not unjust to their Christian subjects, although they required them to pay a personal tax and to submit to other humiliating conditions. They allowed both Christians and Jews to occupy important positions and in some cases to amass great fortunes. The family physician of the caliph was almost always a Jew, while Christians were employed as scribes, administrators, and architects. Among the officials of his court in 675 there was a Christian named John, who held the position of head of the tax collection department, an office which seems to have become hereditary in his family. That was the father of our saint, and the nickname Al-Mansur, which the Arabs gave him, was later transferred to the son. John Damascene was born around the year 690 and was baptized in his infancy. Regarding his early education, if we are to believe his biographer, his father took it upon himself to teach him not how to ride a horse, nor how to throw a spear, nor how to hunt wild beasts and change his natural kindness into brutal cruelty, as happens to many. But John, the father, sought a tutor, learned in all sciences, skilled in all forms of knowledge, who would produce good words from his heart, and gave him his son to be nourished with this kind of nourishment. Later, he was able to provide him with another teacher, a monk named Cosimo, of beautiful appearance, but of even more beautiful soul, whom the Arabs had brought from Sicily among other captives. His father had to pay a great price for him, and well deserved, since, if we are to believe our chronicler, he knew grammar and logic, as much arithmetic as Pythagoras, and as much geometry as Euclid. He taught the young John all the sciences, but especially theology, as he did another young man whom his father seems to have adopted, also named Cosimo, who became a poet and troubadour, and who finally accompanied his adopted brother to the monastery where they both became monks. Despite his theological training, he does not seem to have considered at first any other career but that of his father, whom he succeeded in his office. At court, he was free to lead a Christian life, and there he became noted for his virtues, and especially for his humility. However, after holding his important post for some years, St. John resigned his office and went as a monk to the Laura of St. Sabas, near Jerusalem. It is still a matter of dispute whether his first works against the iconoclasts were written while he was in Damascus, but the best authorities since the time of the Dominican Lycian, who published his works in 1712, are of the opinion that the saint became a monk before the persecution broke out, and that his 3 treatises were composed in the Laura of St. Sabas. In any case, John and Cosmas settled among the brethren, and occupied their spare time writing books and composing hymns. Possibly it has been thought that the other monks were pleased by the presence of such a valiant champion of the faith as John, but this was far from the truth. It was said that the newcomers were introducing discord. It was bad enough to write books, but even worse to compose and sing hymns, so scandalized were the brethren. The final straw came when, at the request of a monk whose brother had died, John wrote a funeral hymn and sang it to a sweet melody composed by himself. His superior, an old monk whose cell he shared, attacked him full of fury and threw him out of there. "Do you forget your vows in this way?" the old man exclaimed. "Instead of covering yourself in mourning and weeping, you sit full of joy and delight in singing." He only allowed him to return after several days, under the condition that he would go around the surroundings of the Laura and pick up all the garbage with his own hands. St. John obeyed without replying, but during the dream Our Lady appeared to the old monk, and ordered him to allow her disciple to write as many books and as much poetry as he wished. Henceforth, St. John was able to devote his time to study and to his literary work. Legend adds that he was several times sent, perhaps for the good of his soul, to sell baskets in the streets of Damascus, where he had once occupied such a high position. It must, however, be confessed that these details, written by his biographer more than a century after the saint's death, are of doubtful authority. If the monks of St. Sabas did not properly appreciate the two friends, there were others outside who did. The Patriarch of Jerusalem, John V, knew them well by reputation and wished to have them among his clergy. He first took Cosmas and made him bishop of Majuma, and then ordained John a priest and brought him to Jerusalem. It is said that St. Cosmas ruled his flock admirably until his death, but St. John soon returned to his monastery. He carefully revised his writings, and wherever they were adorned with rhetorical flourishes or seemed superfluous in style, he prudently reduced them to a more austere gravity so that they would have no hint of lightness or lack of dignity. His works in defense of the icons had been known and read everywhere, and had earned him the hatred of the emperors who persecuted them. His enemies never succeeded in harming him because he never crossed the frontiers to enter the Roman Empire. He spent the rest of his life writing theology and poetry at St. Sabas, where he died at an advanced age. He was proclaimed Doctor of the Church in 1890. The Gospel passage referring to the miraculous healing of the man with the withered hand, noted in the Roman Missal for the Mass of St. John Damascene. When the saint was still an official of the treasury in Damascus, Emperor Leo III, who hated him but could do nothing against him openly, tried to harm him by means of a deception. He forged a letter and pretended that it had been written to him by John, informing him that Damascus was weakly defended and offering him his help should he decide to attack. Leo sent the caliph this forged letter, with a note to that effect, telling him that he hated treason and wishing his friend to know of his official's behavior. The angry caliph had John's right hand cut off, but gave him the mutilated limb at John's request. The saint took the severed hand to his private hut and prayed in exemplary verses before an image of the Mother of God. Through the intercession of Our Lady, the hand was reattached to the arm and was immediately used to write a thanksgiving.